Hey, everybody.
What's going on, guys?
How's it going, all?
I'm gonna steal Ben's intro. What up, guys? You can get mad at me later. That's fine.
I need to do that. I need to hit my play for this.
Yep.
So we are back, ready to talk some film. Let me do this. All right.
What's up, Ultimus? What's up, Dagan?
Real quick, guys, and everybody watching, is my internet okay, or am I coming in choppy?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, cool.
Coming
Because yesterday was a nightmare, so I'm just checking.
Howdy, Clint.
Oh,
Yeah, I
Clint.
didn't even get a notification about last night for your show, Joe. Other words,
Nobody
been in there.
Dude, Dan C didn't even know about it until, like, literally he had to go searching for my channel, like, to go find it because he knew I was supposed to be on.
So,
But
Jeff,
he didn't get it either.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Clint. Glad to see you guys popping in here. Clint, I enjoyed being in the live earlier. Very excited for Captain Stash. And even though we don't talk weird stuff here, very excited. We don't get owners in this chat either. Very excited for your 2021 and Captain Stash.
yeah, a good release.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And good to finally see you. That's the first time I saw you. So you'll be coming on therapy pretty soon here. So that'll be fun too. All right. So tonight, guys, what we decided to do, and you're more than welcome, brother. You're more than welcome. Good stuff, good man, good company, all that jazz. We decided to take December off, refill the tanks, even though we had just gotten started, and we're coming in tonight with what I call a grab bag, which is each of us chose a film that we had hoped the other guys hadn't necessarily watched, but if they had, no biggie. And then we were all going to watch it so that we could discuss these three films in detail. Kind of got away from the genre stuff that we had been doing for the first three shows actually. And so my film was The Fall, this very tiny limited release art house flick that I recommend everyone should see. Now, I don't know if my compadres here are going to make that same recommendation. Eric, what was your film?
My film was the Guy Ritchie classic, Snatch.
And Joe?
My film was a 2014 The Homesman with Tommy Lee Jones, Hilary Swank. Very small, unknown movie, but a great performance. If you get a chance to watch it, I highly recommend it. Especially if you enjoy your Western and stuff like that, you'll enjoy it.
So you've got three. Obviously, Snatch is the most well known, but some people may have not have heard of it. And then Joe's and mine are completely off the radar. That wasn't intentional. Again, this is just in my choosing The Fall. This is just all about, hey, I want more people to see this film because it's gorgeous, but it can be a little tricky. So, as this was my week on our choices, we're going to jump in and start with The Fall.
What's up, Brian?
I did since I knew this was coming up, I did in the Film Bits Close Reads, I broke down the intro, which is a 2-minute credit introduction. I broke that down. So if any of you wind up becoming interested in this, I did that for the film. It's a film, a total labor of love. The director is named Tarsem. He's not too well known, although he did direct REM's Losing My Religion back in the early 90s. He has a very good eye, and a lot of his stuff is visual candy. The Fall is a beautiful film, and he made a lot of commercials while he was trying to break into film, and he couldn't get financing for this film. As a matter of fact, the film only cost $30 million. I say only, but that is very, very small. But it only made 3.7 in the box office. So it was a huge loser. Now, a lot of that was Tarsem's own money. He did have some financiers backing, including David Fincher, director of Seven. And while he was filming commercials, every time they would go someplace that had some amazing scenery, he and his director of photography, who stuck with him for over a decade in the commercial stuff and also worked with him on The Fall, he'd say, take a shot of this, take a shot of that. There's virtually no CGI in The Fall, so everything is practical. And I believe there are 30 locations in 6 continents to make this film up. Also, just to kind of give you some of that visual, in my Film Bits film school, when I was talking about the 3 sounds of film, I used some footage from The Fall in there just to kind of show you the beauty of this thing. So True Labor of Love, like I said, an art house release from inception to when it hits the theaters is about a 20-year process. He does a lot of that, like scenery photography, and then he writes the script, and then he gets going. It's a no-name cast. The only guy who you might know is Lee Pace, who plays Roy, the lead actor, and that's only because Lee Pace has done some things since then. Perhaps most notably is he was Ronan, one of the villains toward the end of the movie in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. He's done a few other things as well. When he's in all the Ronan makeup, you wouldn't recognize him anyway. All right, so let's start with the plot. The film is set in 1920s Los Angeles. And indeed, after the opening credit sequence, and the opening credit sequence tells a story in black and white that's very important to the rest of the film. Then we get a title card that says Los Angeles Once Upon a Time, which kind of sets us up, right? What's going on in the 2-minute black and white sequence, which is very difficult to discern, is they're filming, and this is still the silent era of motion pictures. They're filming a cowboy film, and a stunt is done that the stuntman rode a horse off of an overhead trestle bridge and took the horse into the water. The horse died, and the stuntman wound up paralyzed, and his name is Roy, and he's our male lead. We learn as we go through, by the way, we're spoilers for all of these films. We learn as we go further that the reason he did that is he was trying to get the attention of the lead actress, who had left him for the lead actor, who was kind of a big stud of his day. Okay. So he winds up becoming paralyzed. He's in this hospital. He meets this little girl named Alexandria, who's a little 6-year-old girl when the film starts, named Katinka Utaru, who spoke very poor English, broken English. And as they went along, she actually learned English better. Go ahead, Joe.
Who comes up with that name? Go ahead and say that name again, Joe.
Her mom and dad did. Katinka Utaru. That's the actress's name.
That's the actress. That's her name?
Yeah, she's Romanian.
Wow. That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've never heard a name like that before, ever. That was, wow. That's
Alexandria is the character's name. Now she and Roy wound up meeting. Now, here's a very interesting tidbit. Tarsem wanted the entire crew to think Lee Pace was paralyzed. So for like the first 3 weeks of shooting, Lee was wheeled everywhere in a wheelchair, and he didn't actually reveal himself to be mobile until sometime later on in the filming. As you might imagine, a 6-year-old girl encountering any kind of disability is probably going to be a bit standoffish and even afraid. And you see this early on. The film wasn't shot completely linearly, but they did shoot all the hospital scenes all in a row. And that's where we see Roy being paralyzed. And she's very standoffish. As the actors got to know each other, we see Alexandria and Roy become closer, just like Katinka and Lee are becoming closer, to the point where she's crawling up in bed with him, and they're having this story that'll become very important in the plot, where he's telling her this story. And it's very interesting to see. And Katinka would consistently forget her lines, but she would come up with these gems that Tarsem went away from the script a lot and let her just kind of improv, even though she didn't know she was improving, and kept them because they were such jewels. And Roy would oftentimes have to improv. Lee Pace would have to improv off of her because he knew the camera was still rolling. And here she's messing up. And so he's trying to direct her back onto the script and stay in character. So it must have been a really fun experience, the actual filming of this film, when it wasn't maddening. So she comes in one day, she drops a note from a window, and it lands on Roy's lap, and the note was meant from one of the nuns at the hospital there, and Katinka has broken her arm, or Alexandria has broken her arm. That's why she's there. And she gets mad that Roy has the note, and that's how their relationship starts. And he tells her a quick tale. He's like, well, do you know why you're Alexandria? Because that came from this guy named Alexander the Great. And then a doctor comes in to talk about Roy's x-rays, and he shoos Katinka, or Alexandria, away and says, come back tomorrow and I'll tell you an epic. Now, she's a 6-year-old girl, and this sounds really cool. So she comes back in. Roy had forgotten that he said he would tell her a tale. So she comes in, and they develop this relationship based on a story. And Roy keeps telling this story episodically. Now, some of the interesting devices in this story. We hear Roy's narration, but what we see are Alexandria's images. And they don't always jibe. Roy talks about an Indian and a wigwam and a squaw. Well, Katinka, or Alexandria, has no knowledge of Native Americans, but she did work with an Eastern Indian in the orange groves. So when he's talking about squaw and wigwam, she's picturing an Indian from India. The story is about a bunch of bandits who all have a hatred for this guy called Lord Odious, and they're all going to go together. And they're kind of superhero-esque. They don't have superpowers necessarily, except for one of them has kind of supernatural shamanistic powers, let's say. But that's the whole story. Now, as they're going along and they're developing this bond, Roy gets to a very dark place and decides he wants to end it all. So he takes the story and he uses it to get Alexandria to get him morphine so he could overdose and kill himself. And he'll use it as a trap. And he will, if she screws up or if she does something he doesn't like, he'll get mad at her, and that anger will take itself out on her in the story. Something will happen that he knows Alexandria won't like in the story. And it gets to a point where Roy starts killing off some of these characters, and Alexandria starts taking over the narration. She will pop up in the story. And so it's this lovely little device of who's really in control of the story at this point. Alexandria has always been in control visually. Roy is in control of the plot and the characters, etc. And then we have this, when Roy starts doing things she doesn't like, she takes over the actual story and acts as a savior and tries to save people that Roy wants to kill. And what comes out of this whole thing is Roy doesn't kill himself, although he does try. Is there's this lovely little scene where they talk about the Eucharist and how she had stolen a cracker from the church of the hospital and gave it to Roy, and Roy explained to her that it was the Eucharist. And he says, "Are you trying to save my soul?" And she doesn't get the concept. Go ahead. Is that, Joe, is that an end?
Yeah. I just wanted to, just for clarification purposes here, so people understand the way that the story is going and the way it's being shown. And if I'm wrong, Joe, please jump in here. The way that it was like kind of told episodically, if you will, almost kind of brings me back to the original Gulliver's Travels, the way every single story goes off of these characters, right? And this thing, but it's all a different situation and everything's different. And every time he meets this girl, or if the girl comes back, even though he doesn't want her to come back at all, but she just keeps coming back, it's another story and he's just coming off the top of the head. But it's kind of like the Gulliver's Travels movies, where every time you come, it's a whole different story going on here. So it's almost like there's about, I think it was 4 or 5 mini movies inside of this movie.
Right. Yeah, and it really is. And two major tropes are used here. Firstly, if you've seen The Princess Bride, it's very similar structurally, where you've got the little boy, and I think it's his grandfather, Peter Falk, telling him the story, and then we go into Princess Bride land. Exact same thing there. Then it also uses the trope, and this is Tarzan paying homage, it also uses the trope The Wizard of Oz did, which was Dorothy taking people in real life and making them characters within Oz. So we get people, some of whom we've seen, some of whom we haven't seen until maybe later in the film. Those are populating her list of these bandits, okay? There's an Indian, there's an explosives expert from Italy, there's a slave, a slave that frees himself. There's Charles Darwin, the naturalist, and then there's the chief of the bandits himself, the black or red bandit, depending. So she's using real people to do that. So these are devices we've seen before. But what winds up happening is Alexander saves his life, and it's a lovely little message. She has lost her father. Her father was killed in her homeland when she was very young, we learn. through a very interesting sequence, and one of the probably the most confusing sequence in the film, because the stop motion animation is used and there's all sorts of weirdness going on. But Roy is her father. Roy has become like a father figure to her. Initially, the bandit spoke with her father's voice. And then she's like, my father doesn't speak like that. He's dead. And then Roy was like, oh, okay. And then Roy becomes that character. Since it's Alexandria telling the tale, Roy becomes the leader of the gang, of the pack of bandits. So she saves his life. She does indeed, we could say, save his soul, if we want to look at it that way. And it's also, this film is kind of a love letter to silent movie Hollywood as well. Just from the way we see that beginning, the end, there's a sequence of stock footage and new footage that's all run together in black and white and silent, showing stunts, crazy stunts from real films of Hollywood's bygone days, as well as some footage of Roy doing a stunt in another different Western film. Visually, it is absolutely gorgeous and sumptuous. The plot is very basic as far as like, okay, once you see what Roy is doing, and he's really kind of a prick for trying to get this 6-year-old girl to be an accomplice to his own choice to kill himself.
Horrible. Like, it's just terrible.
Yeah. But he gets redemption through her act of trying to save him in the story, because he wants to kill himself off in the story, and thus metaphorically, and thus kill himself off in real life. They kind of are mirrors of each other, but she saves him in the story, thus saving him in real life. And he finally capitulates and realizes this little girl isn't going to let me die, even though she makes some mistakes that inadvertently save Roy's life. That's the last thing I'll say, is that the cutest thing is he writes out the word morphine, but his E looks like a 3. And she repeats it to him, MORPHIN 3. And he says, mm-hmm. So she takes the note, she gets this big bottle of morphine, and she empties it so there's only 3 tablets. So that's hardly enough for him to OD. And so she thought she was doing exactly what he wanted, but he wound up not being able to kill himself as a result. I highly recommend this movie. It is confusing. By the way, it's very difficult to find. I have a digital copy of it. If you are at all interested, DM me, and if you have a Gmail address, it will become a Google Drive file. I can send it to you, and you can check it out and hopefully enjoy it. That's all I've got for my breakdown of The Fall Boys.
All right. My take on it, I messaged Joe and I'm like, dude, I've restarted this movie 3 different times. I'm 25 minutes in. I got no idea what the F is going on. You know? The one thing I will say, I love that the 2 executive producers were Spike Jonze and David Fincher. And the thing I liked about those guys, I liked their music videos, which is how they got into directing. Mm-hmm. You know, all the stuff Spike Jonze did with Weezer and Beck and everything else. And, you know, David Fincher was kind of a prelude to Guy Ritchie directing Madonna videos and whatnot. But the things I really liked about the film was once they got into like the story aspect of it, and I described it like a twisted Princess Bride, kind of, because at first the story starts out as kind of a revenge thing, and you know, but the cinematography, I like how it was muted in the hospital and then just super vibrant during the telling of the tales. If you want to watch this, I'll recommend it, but you need to be in the mood to follow something that's jumping back and forth. The first time I watched it, it was nighttime. I was tired and I couldn't follow it, but go ahead, Joe.
So I'm not going to lie. I called Joe earlier today and I was like, dude, I'm sorry. I was like, I'm trying so hard to really give this a fair shot. The first time I tried to watch it, there was actually something going on with my mom in the rehab center. So it was like I would watch a half hour, get a phone call, watch a half hour, get a phone call. and you take like hour breaks in between, and I go back, and then I didn't tell Joe this, but I tried watching it last night and I fell asleep. I'm sorry, Joe.
That's
I
fine.
did. I tried after we got done doing our 2 Cups of Joe filming. I tried watching it. I fell asleep. It's just so I love the concept of it, right? I really do. I like the idea, the whole way it's set up, the mini stories, the way everything kind of goes full circle, and how you're. One thing that Joe clued me onto that I didn't even realize at first, but it made total sense when Joe said it, was the fact that, yes, the man's telling the story, but you're actually seeing it through the little girl's eyes, her imagination. You're seeing it the way she's imagining what he's saying. And that was something I really didn't pick up on when I was watching the film. Now, was that because I had 8 million other things going on, or because I'm just not that bright? You guys can judge that one for yourselves. Have fun. Here's what I'll say, man. If you're into these kind of films, and usually I am, I'm surprised this one didn't kind of lock me in. I usually like the ones with the story and a whole lot of character play and a lot of the monologue and details. And I really like that kind of stuff usually. This one did not get me for some reason, but I trust Barbados Joe. And if Joe's telling me it's good, then I'm just going to go with I'm an idiot. So I'm going to trust Joe on this one. That's what I'm going to do.
2 last things. Number one, you're not an idiot. I've taught this for 5 years to my 10th graders. It is definitely a film that works if you like a book club about it, if you will, or have it in a teaching situation where you can ask questions and do that kind of thing. And I don't get to teach it anymore, so I was glad to expose it to you guys, no matter how you feel about it. Those of you who might be interested, if you have questions, I love talking film. DM my ass. Stop the film. Joe, this is what's going on. I have this question. I would love to hear from you. It was, for whatever validity you give critics, it was roundly loved by the critics. And sometimes those critical films that are darlings can be hard on average audiences that like to just go see a film no matter what it is. It's more than anything else, it's just gorgeous. That's the final thing I want to say is that, and the idea that in this day and age of CGI, the fact that they went to 25, 32 different locations.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Just to take a shot. They have a shot in Namibia, I believe it is, of this thing called the Orange Sand Desert, and you have a guy. It's an extreme wide shot. You have the blue of the sky, you have the orange of these mountains, and you have the white of the sands, and you have this little silhouette of a single man standing, and it looks like a painting. It's just so beautiful. I really, really like that aspect. But like Eric said, that's only when we're in the tail. When we're in the hospital, everything is kind of has a very muted palette to it. So that's another thing that's cool visually about the whole thing. All right, guys, whichever one of you wants to go next. I did my bit.
Well, I mean, if we're going that, or Eric, okay. Eric, go, Eric.
Okay. I went with one just because I hadn't watched it in about 6 months and I wanted an excuse to watch it again. Snatch by Guy Ritchie.
You got to get the dag.
Yeah.
Dag.
Yeah. Do I think it's Guy Ritchie's best? No. Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels is my personal favorite. And then Rock and Roll It, and then Snatch. But Snatch, it's one that was very successful at the theaters, outstanding cast. And I find one of the most amusing Brad Pitt characters of his whole career.
Yeah.
She's quite partial to the Periwinkle Blue boys.
Yeah. And basically, in the chat, if you've seen Snatch, give me a thumbs up or something like that. And if you haven't, then I can go into a little more detail about what happens. But I wanted to go with one that was pretty well watched. And the things I love about Guy Ritchie is a lot of similar things that I like about Quentin Tarantino. His dialogue is, the conversations that they have, and it's a dark humor, and just, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And I love Vinnie Jones, Bullet 2 Tony, who, was a professional soccer player, and then was kind of a hooligan on the pitch a little bit. I mean, he was known for getting yellow and red cards quite often. And just,
So Eric, if you want real quick, I wrote down some facts about your film if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did on one of those nut jobs. I've been sitting here writing down facts all day long. All right. So the actual budget, which I found pretty amazing, was only $6 million on this film.
Yeah.
$6 million, and it grossed, its total worldwide income to date is $83 million. So in that sense, it's been an extremely successful film. Aside from Brad Pitt, some other names you might know, Jason Statham is in the film. I'm sorry, you just said his name and I just blanked on it.
Vinnie Jones.
Yeah. And also for all you Walking Dead fans, Lonnie James is also in the movie, aka Morgan. Okay. Brad Pitt got the role in the movie as Mickey. You want to know why? Because his English accent sucked. That's why. They couldn't cast him as anybody else in the film because he couldn't pull it off. So they went with Mickey. And, Brad Pitt, I guess he's one of those character guys. So because he was playing a kind of dirty, grungy, gypsy dude, he decided not to shower during filming.
He was also reticent to do it because he had just done Fight Club and he didn't want to play another boxer.
Yes, he was a little standoffish about it because
he wound up liking Guy Ritchie a lot.
Yeah.
Right. He was afraid of getting typecast in that role of everybody would want him to play a fighter in a movie or a boxer, and he didn't want to do those too much. Also, here's a fun little trivia for you and for all of our fans out there. The word fuck is said 163 times in this film. 160. First of all, I want to know who went back and counted that. That's what I want to know. All right. That's what I want to know. Did somebody get the script and skim through and just highlight them all? Or did somebody actually sit there and go 1, 2, 3, 4, like,
Because they did it in Lebowski too, Joe, and Lebowski comes in at close to 300.
Yeah.
And then, Joe, here's something from when we were filming last night. There was a body count of about 24 to 26 people in this movie, and 99% of them, you do not see the kill. You see everything up to that moment, and then the camera pans away and lets you imagine what just happened to that individual pretty much.
Yeah.
And you might hear some shotgun blasts.
Right. But they never actually give you the money shot, if you will. And one last little thing here, right? They couldn't afford enough extras for the fight scenes, right? For the boxing matches. So what they would have to do is every time they would change the camera angle, they'd have to stop filming and have all the extras shift over to the other area now and then shoot it from that angle. So if you can imagine how long it took them to actually film that one fight scene at a time, they probably had to shoot it about 50 different times for every camera angle they gave you. Crazy.
And there was a lot of time devoted to fights in that film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're up, Eric. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries. I always love that kind of stuff. Like I say, one thing I love about Guy Ritchie movies is, his dialogue is epic. And then when you work in the different dialects for different people and almost a need for subtitles in some of them, and Bricktop.
Yes.
Probably
the man who taught me what the expression "as hungry as a pig" really stands for. That man, when I heard that story, I went, wow, I'm never using that again. I was like, that's terrible. Wow. Okay. But yeah, I love the Bricktop character, everything about him, even just the teeth. Like, were those his real teeth? Is that his teeth?
I don't know.
Those glasses were key too.
Yeah.
The glasses were key. And, I love how I love another thing I like about him and Tarantino, the way they weave everybody's individual stories into each other.
Right.
And it's all basically following this diamond. And, the diamond is the key to every single story and how everything, mixes together and then all kinds of culminates at the end, at the end of all the different stories, I just think that's real clever. And I enjoy it when, you're seeing characters and you're like, well, I know he's probably, because I know Guy Ritchie movies, he's going to end up linking into so-and-so story. I'm just wondering how the hell it's going to happen, and seeing how he does it, very reminiscent of Pulp Fiction, how Tarantino weaves all these characters together in different vignettes. And, so I love it when someone like that is really clever, and I really enjoy Guy Ritchie movies. Although The Gentleman Let Me Down.
Two things here. On Joe's list of the cast, you left a big name off, which I was surprised that he was actually in this. The smaller name, if you watched a gangster movie in the 80s or 90s, you saw Dennis Farina. Okay.
Yeah,
Dennis
right.
Farina.
Right.
But Benicio del Toro, Joe.
Oh my God, I did. I can't believe I just did that. Wow, I did.
One of my favorite actors who is only in it for so long, but is in it. And it's like, oh shit, this is a Benicio del Toro movie. Well, no, it really isn't, but he's
Four Finger Tony. Four Finger Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know which finger was missing though. Was it? I don't know which one it was.
Yeah, my favorite Benicio role is Usual Suspects. But yeah, I love Benicio in pretty much anything he does. He's so versatile as an actor. He's not like Michael Douglas, who's Michael Douglas in every single movie. He's Benicio can.
I love him.
So something on a personal level that I loved about this film, Jason Statham has forever been typecast as the badass bald guy who comes around and knows karate, right? That's what he is in almost every film under the sun. Not in this one. He's just the average Joe who apparently doesn't know how to fight at all and is intimidated by just about everyone. And he's just more built on his ability to act and carry a conversation. And I think this is honestly one of his greatest performances without any action involved, period. It's just a great performance from him. Very well done. He carries scenes really well, and I think he gets a bum. I get it. It's fun watching the bald-headed guy kick people in the face. I get it. But the man can actually act. This movie is proof of that.
Well, he was so good in Transporter that they made 3 of the movies, and then Fast and the Furious, which is very Transporter-esque. They brought him over for that, and then the remake of The Mechanic. This is one of the few movies where he doesn't kick any ass.
Well, he is essentially this generation. He was in between like the Arnolds and all those, like Arnold and Sly and them were getting older, and then all of a sudden he was part of that era with like Jet Li and the Jackie Chans and them. They're the action stars, right? So they don't get roles in a ton of movies. They get like 1 or 2, 3, 4 even movies that they're in that they just make a bunch of friggin' sequels off of. That's what all of them have done throughout their careers, I mean, Steven Seagal's still making friggin' movies. Nobody knows what they're called, but he's still making them.
Yep.
So I just think he's in this movie. I think maybe he just did it just to show everyone, look, I don't have to kick ass in every movie. I can act, guys.
Yeah.
Now, that's not what he's ever been cast for, but hey, it still's got to be a nice one for him to look back on.
I wanted to also mention Stephen Graham, who plays Tommy, Turkish sidekick. This is a guy that is a heavy hitter, British actor. Royal Shakespeare Company, has all sorts of credits. He was Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire, which was a series I love.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you will see him pop up and go, oh shit, it's that dude, because he's British and he plays characters. He's a smaller guy too. He just plays characters that, like, his Al Capone was fucking intimidating if you watch Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
And he's just this little kind of guy, and obviously you can shoot to make him not as little, but I loved him in this film because I had forgotten he was in it. I learned more about his future roles after Snatch than when I rewatched. I was like, oh shit, he's in this too. So he's a nice little addition to.
But no matter how many times you watch this, right? And Eric, you can agree with me or disagree with me. I know it was your choice for the movie. No matter how many times you watch it, Jason Statham, all those guys, all the great performances they put up. Brad Pitt, to me, stole this movie because, I mean, even though you couldn't understand what the hell he was saying half the time, that was the point. He literally threw himself into that gypsy role and he nailed it. Like, he was perfect for that role. It was almost scary at times.
I want to stay here, but since you mentioned it, this is my Brad Pitt sleeper that not a lot of people know about. Early career Brad Pitt. California with a K is the name of the movie.
Him and Juliette Lewis.
Juliette Lewis.
Why does that sound familiar?
Brad Pitt does such a nice job. It was one of his first leads. David Duchovny is also in it.
Yep.
He gave you before. I mean, he did this either right around the time of Thelma and Louise or right after it, but
it was right before.
Right before. Thank you. He's always been cast, at least in the early part, as a pretty boy, but he showed some acting chops in California that we would see later on in movies like Fight Club and this movie here and like Seven and others. California with a K. I'm not going to say anything more about it. It's a solid film, but I really like Pitt's performance in that film. Joe, you got to get on that because it's kind of
I don't think I've seen that one, honestly.
Thriller, psychological thriller kind of vibe. It's very good.
Yeah. And Duchovny was definitely the big name in that movie at the time.
Right.
You know, because Duchovny was coming with X-Files and I don't know,
early 90s,
X-Files or early Californication at that point, and Red Shoe Diaries. But David Duchovny was the big name, and Brad Pitt will surprise the hell out of you when you get a watch.
Since we're on that Brad Pitt vine here, I think Brad Pitt was one of the few heartthrob actors, if you will. You know, the good-looking actor who probably didn't really have to have acting chops, if you will. Mm-hmm. He was going to get put in movies just because he was good-looking, and a lot of women found him very attractive. That was very observant of his position in the world, if you will. He didn't want to just be that good-looking guy on the screen. Yeah. He wanted to take roles where he could show people, no, I'm an actor. You know, so what? I look like a Greek god. I can actually act, damn it. You know what I mean? And he took on some roles that really defined that throughout his career that I think has set him apart. That whole discussion, I heard a lot of people about the greatest actors of all time. That's so hard to do because it's going to depend on what you like and what you don't like and things like that. But he's definitely in that discussion, and he's made a lot of people a ton of money throughout the years.
Well, the next film bits I do when I'm done with True Detective, or maybe even before I'm done, is going to be Seven, and I'll be talking a lot about Pitt and his chops and that for sure. One thing I want to discuss before we leave this, because I want to discuss something technical with you guys. I remember when I first saw this really grabbed me, and it may have been the same for you guys. And now after watching a second time, Richie and his editors' use of that fast, choppy editing with the sound effects that would go with it. Like if you remember when Dennis Farina headed to New York
on the airplane,
we get variants of that kind of editing and time telling mechanism throughout the film. Do you think it added to the film? Do you think it was gimmicky? What are your feels on that part of it? Because we get it a bunch. We don't just get it once or twice.
I thought it actually added to the film, to the feel of it, to the pace of the film almost. So instead of having like, so for example, me and Joe, as everybody knows, are huge Tarantino fans. If this is a Tarantino film, we're probably going to get to fade to the black with a title of what's coming up next, right? And that's Tarantino's pace, more methodical, more slow building, right? Well, Snatch kind of, while it's building in a story way, it's kind of fast paced. It just never stops. Something's always happening. And I think those scenes that you're talking about where we're switching from one character to another, if you will, the fact that it's real, boom, 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 something's opening, there you go, moving on. It kind of adds to the whole pace of the film really well, I thought.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. Joe. I thought it fits his texture of storytelling very well.
Mm.
You know, I mean, you don't see cuts like that from any other directors that I've noticed, at least. And if they do, you know, they're paying homage, you know. But yeah,
Clint, I haven't watched that one.
Oh shit, Joe.
Peaky Blinders.
Oh,
I haven't watched it.
You can watch one without the other, but I think if you watch Boardwalk Empire first and transition,
I've seen Boardwalk Empire.
Okay, Peaky Blinders is the British version, kind of. Depression era, Birmingham, which is the second city of England, and a small family gang that does like family, like low-level crime business, at least in the start. And Cillian Murphy, who you've definitely seen before, Joe, but he is the lead actor, and it's so well done.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. He was in the Wind That Shakes the Barley, and
Yes.
Yep.
Bit
28
role
days
in
later.
Inception. He was in Inception towards the
yeah,
end.
yeah. He was in
Okay.
the red eye.
I
The
haven't
one where he's
seen
on
that
the one where he's on the airplane with the girl, and he's threatening to kill her father if she doesn't send the president to a hotel room. And
I haven't-
that one.
By the way, good call on When the Shakes the Barley, motherfucker. That's
Oh, I love that movie.
right there. Oh, that's a.
I
But
love that movie.
and it's Netflix, Joe, and it's Netflix,
Yeah.
and it's British, so a season is like 6 episodes, so you could catch up in a matter of weeks. You know,
See,
within 4 or 5 seasons.
I'm so like picky when it comes to like putting on. It's not that I'm picky. That's the wrong word. I'm almost like lazy when it comes to watching a show. So I'll be sitting here and I'm like, oh, well, I can put something new on, but no, I can watch, Kitchen Nightmares for the 8 millionth time instead.
Oh, Joe, it's next level Boardwalk Empire. I can see why. Empire's a great show, but it's also Jersey, so I can see why you would dig that. But it's next level. Every episode is like a feature film, brother. Just all of it, and then it's well written and it continues. And one thing I love about British writing, like take a series like The Office before it ever came to America, they tell their story and they're fucking done. They're not trying to go in a few extra seasons to milk it. Peaky Blinders, I don't know if they had a plan, but they're into, what are they, season 5? Was that the most recent one?
I think so.
Okay. Now that's only 30 episodes, which is just more than like your traditional ABC, CBS, NBC. That's just a little bit more than a season on one of those. But they're 5 separate stories, but there's also that continuity and connective tissue because they're a family that's doing this. So there's always these tiebacks to the early times. Cillian Murphy as post World War I, as Clint said, so he has PTSD and he'll still get shit that fucks with him from World War I, even in the later seasons. So I would definitely invest some time into the first.
It is on Netflix. It is on my list for Netflix. Right. Like it's sitting there whenever I go to your list or whatever that is, your marked ones.
Yeah,
it's there. I haven't actually made the move to friggin' click on the damn button.
Well, probably because it's got a weird ass name, Joe.
Maybe.
And also, one thing that I think you'll love about it, Joe, is what really blew me away with Boardwalk Empire was the costumes and the sets and the cinematography. I mean, like Joe said, it's like a mini movie. Each episode is its own movie. And I mean, the budget for those shows cannot be cheap.
Yeah, no.
Just for all the extras that are in costume and, and
it's gorgeous. Birmingham is the coal area of England. So it's gritty and dirty and nasty, but it's gorgeous in all of that as well.
All right. I got it. I'm sold. I believe you. I'm in. All right.
Let us know when you watch your first one. Eric, anything else you want to say on Snatch before we go to the Homesman?
No, watch every Guy Ritchie movie. They're all great.
There you go.
Gentlemen, I got one other thing. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 73. There you go. That's it. Last fact.
What, on Snatch? Yeah.
No, Snatch. They gave it a 73 on Rotten Tomatoes. And for if you listen to Rotten Tomatoes or you don't, I'm an Adam Sandler fan, so I don't listen to Rotten Tomatoes.
All right, let's do the Homesman, Joe, which I'm going to start off by saying you gotta classify it as something, but to call it a Western makes no sense to me because it's not a fucking Western.
It's not a
Western.
it's not a Western as you think of a Western. However, if you were to tell somebody how the movie looks, the way it looks, the way it feels, right? What would you say?
No, I'm right. I would love late 19th century period piece, but that's a mouthful, and it was in the West, but it's in the Midwest, so we default to that. But the fact calling it a Western visually, yes, but it doesn't have any of the it does have some Native Americans and a few other things, but it's lacking most of the tropes and archetypes of a traditional Western.
Oh, it does have two moments in it that kind of define it, though, in the Western category, if you will. And we'll get to that, though.
Yeah.
So, The Homesman, which, again, you know me, guys, man, I like to go after the films that, like Joe, most people haven't heard of, maybe haven't seen, right? And I want to get it out there to you guys and see if I can't get a few of you to watch it and just find out. Like, when Joe watched it and started messaging me, like, dude, what did he just say? And what's going on? I like that stuff because now me and Joe are going back and forth about the movie and we're talking. And I
believe my DM was "fuck you, motherfucker," and you can go into that a little bit more.
That's right. That's right. That was about it. Yeah. So, The Homesman, 2014, starring Tommy Lee Jones and Hilary Swank. Other notable names in the film that you might know or remember: John Lithgow, James Spader, and Meryl Streep also makes an appearance in the film. So actually, this is a film that has 3 Academy Award winners and 2 nominees. So 5 people that were up for awards at one point or another for Best Actor or Actress or whatever.
Also directed by Tommy Lee Jones.
Right.
Yes. Directed by Tommy Lee. Now, I guess unfortunately for Tommy, though, this is going to be called a failure because the budget is $16 million and to date it's only made $4 million. So I guess because he can't, you have to justify to a studio letting you make another film, right? If it doesn't make money, a studio is not going to want you to make another film. That's just the way things go, right? So I guess unfortunately, at the end of the day for Tommy, this is going to be a loss, but film-wise, the product he put out was absolutely fantastic. So the whole premise of the movie is Hilary Swank lives in a small town that is literally, I guess from what I understood about it, Joe, and I don't know if you got this as well, their cop is essentially their priest. Like he runs the town.
Right.
He's the one in control of things. They listen to him. They go to him for advice. He's got his finger on the town, giving them advice on what to do. And
we are in the Midwest, just so everyone's
we're
like in Nebraska, Iowa territory. Okay, so
Nebraska,
know where we're set.
Nebraska territory.
Yep.
And there is a group of women who I don't know what's the right term here, Joe.
I would say they have a mental disease due to things that have happened to them in life or mental illness.
I would say like a post-traumatic stress almost, like maybe things that have happened. Each woman has had something different happen to them, be it abuse, losing a child, whatever it might be. And some of the things they show you as these husbands are trying to say like, oh, she's crazy and she's this and she's that. The one scene, a husband actually mounts his wife with
fucking
like the mom in bed with her.
Fucking and the beauty of that is you get the sex scene, like not graphically, but you're like, okay, so this is going on, this is how they did it. And then the camera pans left, like you get a few moments of the sex. You're like, okay, sex scene, I've seen a million of these. And then the camera pans left and pulls back, and you're like, oh my God! Yeah. The mother is in bed with them. That was,
and mom's still holding the daughter's hand and everything, and you're like, oh my God, what is happening right now, right? Like
Jones set that up well, yeah.
They've all had horrible lives essentially, and you could also kind of add it into, like Joe said, they're in the Midwest. It is back in the day here. There's probably not much to do either. They're probably trapped inside the house a lot and things happen and they probably have more than a few things wrong with them. So John Lithgow, who plays the priest, decides that somebody needs to take these women. He talks to another church and finds a place to send these women to go get them the help they need. And he has all the men from the town come to the church, and they're going to draw straws. And Hilary Swank is there. She is, oh my God, this was so bad for Hilary. I'm sorry. The whole premise of Hilary Swank in this movie is that she's ugly. That's what they built this whole thing around, was that she was, how did she put it? She was uncommonly single. That's what she put. Uncommonly single, unnormally alone, things like that. It was horrible. I felt so bad for her the whole movie. But basically, the movie starts with her trying to convince somebody who does deliveries for her, like, we can make a good team. I can take care of you. I can feed you. I can do this. I can do that. And he just kind of looks at her and goes, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
And walks, gets up and leaves. So she's the only woman in there who doesn't have kids, a husband, all that stuff. And she's looking at the men there as well and thinking to herself, well, they have wives, kids, they got to take care of still. She goes up to draw for one of the men who isn't there. And she doesn't actually draw the straw, but she still says she'll go. She'll do it. It makes sense for her to do it. And the other men all in the group agree that she should be the one who carries these women across. I don't remember how far was it, Joe? Do you remember?
Hundreds, if not at least 1,000 miles. Hundreds.
Yeah.
Right. So, and this is again in the old, it's not like a true Western, if you will, but in the old West type setting. It's lawless. It's open country. You've got Indians out there. You've got this. It's not a place that in that time people would say a woman should be traveling alone.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't happen, but Hilary Swank's going to do it.
Yeah, a group of 4 women.
Yeah.
And three of them are not all there at the moment, right?
And it's a total dereliction of duty because it was the man's responsibility in such situations to do those things. That's where the term the homesman comes from, right?
Right.
They're supposed to do it. And the fact that they all puss out is just very indicative, and it's also very positive about
one of them
character.
One of them pussed out before they even got to the church. He didn't even show up.
Right.
And it was one of the women was his wife.
Right.
But he didn't even go to draw. Like almost every one of the guys there, it was their wives that had to be transported, but they wanted no part of actually having to transport their wives. Yeah. And you're just sitting here in amazement that, Hilary Swank's Hilary Swank's character, who is Mary B. Cuddy, is more than willing to do this because she feels like, again, she doesn't have anybody at home to take care of, and that she can do this. So they give her this, let's just call it what it is. It was basically a police wagon.
Right.
It's got chains in it and everything else. They show it to her. She's like, what is this for? And, shaking on the chain. And he's like, in case you want to chain up one of them women. And she's like, oh, like in that moment, I think it all kind of grasps her what she's gotten herself into a little bit here. But she doesn't seem like the kind of person who's going to back out once she said she's going to do it. So she does. She sets off on this journey. She's going to do it. And a little ways into it, she just happens to come across a man who is being hung by his own horse, basically, at that moment, which is a way of doing things back then to torture a man. They would put the noose on you, set you up, and then have you on your horse. And they just leave you there with the assumption that you're going to die because eventually the horse is going to move on, right? That's what they're thinking. And it's Tommy Lee Jones, and you find out that Tommy Lee Jones' character has been squatting, basically. That's what he's doing. Some guy hadn't come back for a while, and he thought, well, it's not his house anymore now. I'm taking it. And he got into it with some guys. They left him for dead, basically. Now, Tommy Lee Jones's character in this movie, his name is Briggs, and he's just not a very nice person, honestly. He's really not. He doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't, even when she saves him, he doesn't want to help her, even after he said he would. But she says, I'll get you down. You got to come with me. And it turns out that these two, an outcast, and God, I feel so bad talking about Hilary Swank in this movie, but the ugly chick who never got married in the town are going to take these women to their destination. And she even sweetens the pot by telling him, I will put money in a bank account for you. It'll be there waiting when this is over. And actually, she lies to him. She has the money. She can give it to him whenever she wants to, but she doesn't want to because she's afraid he'll just turn and take off right away as soon as he gets the cash, right?
And he would have.
Absolutely. Now, a few scenes in this movie that really stand out to you and will probably forever stand the test of time. First of all, these poor women had been through hell. You could see it. They were just screaming in the carriages, and they were not okay. They did need help. And Mary B., Hilary Swank's character, is really trying to play that nurturing role and take care of these women. While Tommy Lee Jones is more like, listen, let's just get the hell where we're going. I don't care. Let's get there, drop these women off, and get the hell back home. So, one point, one of the women gets away. Go ahead, Joe.
One thing to mention is that when Tommy Jones is on his horse, it's because he was claim jumping another guy.
Right.
Right? I don't know if I missed that if you said it, Joe, but it just shows us that Tommy Jones is a dicey character at best.
Yeah.
The other
like
thing
I said,
go ahead.
He thought that property had been deserted. That was the way he put it. The guy had been gone too long. He could jump it now. It's his.
I must have just zoned out that part, Joe. I'm sorry. The other part is all of these women that are being taken to Iowa are nonverbal. Their mental distress is so severe that they've completely lost the ability or chosen not to speak.
Other than the screeches and the screams and that stuff. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. They're just making random noises. Or one of them talks to her doll, but that's it. She doesn't really say anything specific. She just talks to the doll who has taken the place of the daughter she's lost, essentially. There's a few scenes that really stand out. One of the women gets away at one point, comes across just some random character out there who doesn't care that she's nuts. He's just thinking, hey, I just got my lucky day. I got me a wife to bring home, right? So Tommy Lee Jones goes out to find her. They come across each other. He says, excuse me, friend, but that woman on the back there, that's my friend. She needs help. And we're taking her to get help. This woman's already married. And they get into it back and forth. And the guy even says to him, how about we let her choose who she wants to go to? She looks fine right here. And they actually agree on the horses that they're gonna fight, basically. They're gonna settle this like men. But you see that both of them are shady as hell because they both go for their gun right away. After agreeing, no guns, no any of that, they're going to fight. They both reach for their guns right away. They then do it again. They put it down and then right back to the guns again. And they do. They have it out right there. And Tommy Lee's actually losing this whole exchange until one of the woman comes along and takes the guy's head off and says bye. She actually says bye at the end. Go ahead, Eric.
Tim Blake Nelson is the character. Or is the actor.
That who it was? Okay. Yeah,
Tim Blake Nelson. My favorite role of his was Oh Brother. But he's not super well known, but very talented. I mean, I've seen him play an array of characters, and they're not always the biggest parts. But the guy chops. The guy's got chops. He can act.
First story of Ballad of Buster Scruggs is him as well, and that's my favorite of the anthology.
Mm-hmm. So the other scene that I think Joe and me were having a conversation about, it started here, was where Cuddy actually comes across, they're driving their wagon and they come across a grave that's been destroyed basically. And she wants to take the time to fix it. Well, Tommy Lee Jones doesn't want nothing to do with that. He's going, no, Cuddy, let's go. We got to get going and we got to make camp. And she's like, no, we got to fix this. So I'll stay. I'll fix it. Give me a horse. He goes, well, you ain't taking mine. Here, you got to take that other horse that's huge and way too big for you. And she's like, well, leave me a shovel. And he literally throws the shovel at her. And he does. He leaves her out there in the middle of nowhere, and he just drives on. And she fixes the grave and all that, and she gets lost. God bless her heart. This woman is the epitome of don't do the right thing because it doesn't pan out for you. Because she spends the whole movie trying to be the good person and doing the right things, and she's constantly getting kicked in the face. And she gets lost. She can't find camp. She finally stumbles her way back into camp. You can tell this has been a traumatic experience to her, but Tommy Lee, he's just kind of like, well, I told you this was going to happen. And this leads into the part where Joe called me up and called me an asshole or whatever, however he put it. It leads into Mary B has had her fill of being alone, right? So in the middle of the night, she comes to Tommy Lee naked and says that she wants to lay with him. And if I remember correctly, his first words were no.
Mm-hmm.
He turned her away. And again, this is just more of that. The poor Hillary Swank in this role, man. Like, he just said no. And she tried to convince him, we can have a home when we get back. We can take care of each other. I can take care of you. This and that. So finally, she gets into the bed. Well, not into the bedroll with him, if you will. And he says, take me into your hand. I've never heard that phrase used before, but there you go. And the next scene you see is him waking up. She's not there. He goes down to the creek, and there's Hillary Swank, and she has hung herself. And that's when Joe called me an asshole. That was it right there. I guess Joe didn't see that one coming.
Two things here, Joe. A, I think she was a virgin until that happened. That's just me, just based on all the other stuff, and that she wanted to experience sex at least once because she already knew, in my mind, she already knew what she was doing. Mm-hmm. But those of you still in here, you watched enough films that when a film is moving. Hillary Swank was positioned as the main fucking character of this film. Mm-hmm. Tommy Lee Jones doesn't come in until well after that's been established. And even when they're riding together, Hillary Swank is still the main character. And when I saw her hanging from that tree, I totally didn't see it. Joe, as an emotional movie watcher, got really pissed off, but Joe, as a movie lover inside, was like, fuck yes. Kill that character off. Mess with people in the audience.
It was a huge curveball, and I'll be honest, the first time I was watching, I didn't see it coming at all. So it was really a great scene. Out of nowhere, catches you off guard. The other scene that I love that I think puts this in the Western category is when Tommy Lee decides to continue on with these women, and they come across an inn in the middle of nowhere, and they need help. The innkeeper, who is James Spader, turns them away. He says, no, I refuse the right to serve whoever I don't want to serve, and you guys got to go. So Tommy Lee moves on, gets the women set up somewhere, then gets on his horse, and he comes on back, and he burns the whole fucking place to the ground, kills James Spader, and tortures the whole thing. And to me, that right there is the one thing in this that really might define a Western, if you will, was he took justice into his own hands in that moment. You want to turn 3 women out into the wilderness on their own and leave us out there to die? Well, guess what? I'm going to come back now and make sure you all die.
Well, and they hadn't eaten in 3 days.
Right.
And James Spader's people were laying out this huge spread because he had 16 investors coming to meet with him. And the whole time Tommy's looking at him, just bringing out more food and more food and more food. And he keeps reiterating, these women haven't eaten in 3 days. And Spader is so good at playing an asshole.
Yeah, Spader is one of the good
asshole actors there is. I freaking love James Spader. And my favorite role of his was probably Boston Legal. Him and Shatner playing off each other was beautiful. But to me, it's also kind of a redemption story for Tommy Lee Jones, because he goes,
oh, absolutely,
complete selfish prick to actually caring for these 3 ladies. And
that's where, that's where I was about to. So you're right. It starts off, like Joe said, really centered around Hillary Swank. But by the end of the movie, it has turned into a redemption story for Tommy Lee, who was this complete asshole, shady character, didn't care about anyone but himself, to now he really cares for these 3 women. And he's taken it on because he actually cared for Hillary Swank's character as well. Now he's taken it on as his responsibility to do what she set out to do. He's going to get these women where they have to go and get them the help they need. And by the time he actually delivers them to Meryl Streep's character, the women have become attached to him. They trust him now. They hold on to him. They've become very trusting of him. Go ahead, Joe.
But he does leave them at first, right after Mary dies. He does leave them.
He does at first. Yes, he does. He does
And
walk away, and then he comes on back.
Right.
He did, because he said, this was your crutch, Mary, not mine. I didn't want nothing to do with this, Mary B. And you guys got food. You got this. I'm out of here. Bye.
Right.
But,
which is just like the ultimate. I'm like, this guy can't be a bigger ass. Oh, well, I guess he can be a bigger asshole.
yeah. So again, it does end with him getting them to the town, where he meets Meryl Streep's character, who is the wife of a priest, another priest. She's going to get them the help that they need. Fun fact, actually, the scenes between Meryl Streep and Tommy Lee Jones were all filmed in one day. That's it. Meryl was on set for one day for this movie, and that's it. And she actually did it as a favor to Tommy Lee Jones.
Nice.
They are friends.
Yeah.
She came in and basically said, buy me dinner. That was it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I thought that was a cool little thing, that she just came in and did it as a favor to a friend. And you can see when Tommy delivers these girls, he gets his money. He wants to try and turn his life around for a moment. You can see it. He meets a girl at a restaurant that he likes, and he's trying to convince her to marry him. And, he's got some money now. They can start a life together. But the movie ends on what I thought was one of the best endings I've ever seen. He gets a headstone for Mary B made up, and he gets on the ferry to head back out. The guys, I'm guessing, go put the headstone on where he buried her. And he's been drinking, and he gets up on top of the things, and he starts singing and dancing and shooting his gun and just being himself all over again. And I really think it was a very good movie, man. It's extremely well shot. Some of the scenery, things like that, are beautiful. The score for this, everything about it is well done. The only thing I would have liked a little bit more of is a little bit more backstory on Hilary Swank's character herself. Had she been alone her whole life? Was there no man in her life ever? Or was there a man and maybe something happened? How did she get to where she was? Would have kind of made me a little bit happier. But again, to me, this is a movie, if you haven't seen it, is definitely worth seeing. And for Joe here, you ready for this? If this movie had been done in its original state, the movie would not have been produced and starring Tommy Lee Jones. It would have been done by Paul Newman and starring Paul Newman, because when the book was turned into a script and originally put up, Paul Newman bought the rights to it.
Oh.
He wanted to make this movie, and he tried to make it 6 times. And every time he failed to get the backing he needed, so he just gave up and sold the rights to Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Because
I didn't know that.
No, and he's been dead for quite some time. So Tommy Lee Jones has had this for a while.
Yes. Apparently, not many studios have liked the idea of this film. So it's been hard to get somebody to back this film.
And I can see why. It is a slow film. Now, sometimes when we say it's a slow film, most times it denotes negatively, but it's not. I mean, the story is you're taking 3 women from point A to point B to get them taken care of. That in and of itself has seemingly very little dynamism. But the character of Mary B and then the dynamic that develops between Mary B and Tommy Lee Jones's character, that's what motivates and moves this story. The one thing that I thought was very interesting, Joe, is, and I didn't know about this, but I guess out in the territories, money was drawn up based on individual banks. So it didn't necessarily have to be U.S. currency. So the money Mary B gave him, well, he went to go gambling, and they said, this is no good.
Yes.
So basically, he did it all. He had a little bit of money. He bought himself some nice clothes, and he bought himself that headstone. And then he wanted to gamble and drink. And the $300 Mary gave him was like paper. It wasn't worth anything. So he
because that bank had gone under.
Yes. So I thought that was very, very poignant. That just how he reacted to it, like, well, shit, that sucks. But he just like took that one in stride, because that scene comes right before the ferry scene where he's drinking and having a good old time and doing a dance he had done earlier to entertain the girls.
Yeah.
And the way I looked at that was, when they turned him down earlier in the movie, he would have gotten pissed off and pulled his guns and everything else. But that whole redemption aspect, and then he knew he got those women where he needed to be, and that's enough. That's kind of was my take on how he ended the movie.
Yeah.
And even the ending of it too. It's like, the girl doesn't say no to him, right? The girl he asks to marry him and stuff. In fact, he has her laughing. So even when they end the movie and he's going off to put the headstone to Mary B, is he going to come back for this girl now? Or after the whole thing with the money and stuff, is he just kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to cut my losses here and go back to living my way. And now he's just heading back off. And the last thing he's going to do is make sure Mary B gets her headstone.
Yeah.
So, I tell you what, I had never heard of this film until you picked it. It was slow going, but I can take slow going. I don't mind it. I really think frickin' Hilary Swank's performance pulled my ass along. I mean, and then the little bits of John Lithgow you get in there, and just something about it fascinated me that this fucking woman with land cannot get a guy to marry her. She owns land that you could farm or ranch on. It's not like she's begging; she's bringing shit to the relationship. And so that kind of pulled me through. I really got behind her, which is probably why it stung so hard when she killed herself. But I would heartily recommend this film. Understand that that this is, when we think of Western, we have to take what we think of as the genre of Western and kind of put an asterisk there. Yes, it denotes a Western just based on all the other things, but it's a very slow-paced, slow-moving Western. But behind all of that, I think as a whole, it's a very good film. A very good film.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, I discovered it a few years ago when I had gotten a DVD from the library, and I was watching the previews because I always watch the previews. That's just kind of the guy. I show up at a movie theater early to watch the previews.
Attaboy.
That's just what I do. And I saw this as a preview for another movie, and what movie I don't remember, Beauty of Brain Injuries. But I saw it, and I always liked Tommy Lee Jones and Hilary Swank, great actress. And then they even put Meryl Streep in the trailer, which, considering she only had a couple scenes, I guess that's kind of like putting John Belushi in the trailer for 1941. He was in one scene and boom,
Yeah.
I got it from the library a few years ago, and then when Joe said this was going to be his, I went and I bought it because I remembered how good of a dang movie it is.
Yeah.
So, again, I've just saw one last thing on the Meryl Streep thing. I think the reason Meryl was in the preview, if you will, and the commercial for it, same reason. It was a favor. Tommy asked her to come out and film those scenes and asked to use her for the coming attractions to the movie because of her name and her status as an actress. This was a project, like Joe was saying, the other one was a project of love for that particular individual who made that film. Same thing with this movie for Tommy Lee Jones. He knew going into this wasn't going to be a blockbuster that made billions of dollars for everyone. But he saw an opportunity to make something that he was going to love, a good, strong film based off of two characters, really, that he could build and really make the audience attached to. And I think he did a great job with that. Joe's right, man. Mary B, you're really behind her. Like, you're right. She's got land. She's a female landowner in a time when that doesn't happen much. She's bringing stuff to the table. And no matter how many times they try to convince you that she's ugly in this movie, she's not like grotesque.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's I would call her like she's cute. She's not like amazing, but she's not ugly, not by any stretch. So she's attractive enough. She's got money. She's got land. And half the time when she approaches a guy, she's like, I will give you everything. All you have to do is lay in my bed.
And he's like, nope, peace.
I need a Hilary Swank in my life right now. Where is she?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, old Evan Dunham was like, deuces.
Yeah, no. And even Tommy Lee, his life is nowhere when she approaches him and she's naked. And he's like, No, I'm good. I'm like, this
Andy
poor
J.
woman, no wonder why she hung herself. Like, are you kidding me?
Well,
But he did a great job at really making you care about those characters. That drives the movie. You're 100% right, Joe.
And based on the way it looked and how Jones counteracted the pacing that he knew was going to be slow, and I would be very interested in watching other Tommy Lee Jones directed films, because I have faith in him now as a director. Obviously, I love him as an actor, but I have faith in him as a director, and I would definitely, if someone said, "Hey, this is a Tommy Lee Jones flick," and I mean directing, I would check it out for sure. All right, so I think that does it for our grab bag.
Yes, sir.
We may do this again. We may not. I will tell. I think there's 2 guys in here with us right now. I know Clint is one of them. Yeah. I will say next time. Well, Joe, this was your idea. So, Joe, tell whoever's out there listening or whoever may watch in the future what we're doing next time on Beards on Film.
We're doing the one I talked about last time, right? With you?
Yeah.
The one we discussed?
Well, we talked about it in DMs. I don't know if we said it on the video.
Well, I guess as I say it here, you're going to tell me if I'm talking about the right one anyway. So here we go. So everybody does lists based off of their favorite this, their favorite that, their favorite this, and this. So I said, well, what if we did a list based off of our biggest disappointment, if you will? The movies that were hyped up to the sun that we had to go see because Hollywood and every TV network under the sun, every newspaper, everywhere advertised it. And then you went to go see it and you went, wow, I've been lied to by a couple 100 million people right now because this is terrible. So we're going to do our biggest disappointment films. I don't think we're going to limit it to a genre really, because maybe each one of us will take like a specific area to go with or whatever, but we're each going to take our own twist on this. Like you can guarantee there's going to be some horror films in mine because that's my world. I love the horror films. So I'll probably grab a few from there and just really look at it like this movie was supposed to be amazing. And instead it's a big steaming pile of dog shit, in your opinion, at least.
Right. I'm going to do all 3 of mine are going to be crime because I love the crime genre. So I will be doing 3 crime films. Eric, do you have any idea what you're doing just yet?
I know I've got a couple on deck.
Okay.
I haven't decided on the 3rd one yet.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, when you see every review and all your friends are telling you it's great, normally I don't go see it because it's built up in my mind and I don't want to waste $13 plus snacks at a theater. Well, now I can't even go to a theater here.
I've already got 2 of my movies set in stone because I've hated them for the last 10 to 15 years of my life, maybe even longer since the day I saw each one of these films. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a lot of emotion flying out when I talk about these films because of how much I hate them.
Yeah, my number 1 biggest disappointment was pretty epic.
So that's what's coming in the next 2 weeks. These 3 guys are trying to build this little niche within the beard community. So I do film content both by myself and with Joe. We're hoping that whether it's me and Eric or Eric and Joe, that we also add to that. But I do film bits and I have a film school where I teach you about technique. I have close reads where I just take a little scene and expand on it. And then I have where I analyze films. Currently, I'm analyzing the 1st season of True Detective. Then Joe and I get together and we do 2 Cups of Joe where we do the exact same thing. We're currently in the midst of doing Reservoir Dogs. And we have decided that we're going to follow up Reservoir Dogs because we actually have finished it as of last night with another Quentin Tarantino joint, if I can borrow from Spike Lee. But I'm not going to say what that one is. You have to watch our Reservoir Dogs stuff, and that's a lot of fun as well. So if you dig film and you got one of these, this is the place, or other outlets that involve one of the 3 of us or more to come check it out. Guys, anything else you want to say before we call it a night?
Thanks to all the guys that came and watched and hung out with us.
Yeah.
Thank you to anybody who jumped in here. I know, man, Saturday nights, you got the hype going on. You got a lot of other things going on. So we know people are going to watch this later on as well. And we appreciate anybody who gives us any of your time. Greatly appreciated. Much love to you guys. And we're going to keep doing this just because, I mean, you're going to be one of you guys watching. We just like shooting these things. So we're going to keep doing it.
Right? 2 viewers or 200. This is a
That's
passion
it.
project for all of us. Clint has been in here from the beginning, and he's still commenting. So that's awesome because I dig him as a dude and an owner. So it'll be nice to have someone in here that's as passionate as we are. And I think that's all we got, boys.
Yeah.
All right. So 2 weeks, 8:30, Barbados Joe's Film and Beard Culture. Thank you very much. Beards on Film. We'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.
Be good, guys.
Good.